The letter arrived on a Tuesday, which seemed appropriate somehow. Tuesdays were the sort of mundane, forgettable days when life-changing news had a habit of appearing, when the universe reminded you that it didn't care about timing or convenience. Emma Hartley was elbow-deep in dishwater when her roommate Chloe dropped the envelope on the kitchen counter. "This came for you," Chloe said, eyeing the formal letterhead with curiosity. "Looks official. You in trouble with the law?" Emma dried her hands on a towel and picked up the envelope. The return address read, Morrison and Webb, Attorneys at Law, Ashford, Vermont. Vermont? Emma frowned. "I don't know anyone in Vermont." "Maybe you inherited a mansion from a long-lost relative," Chloe joked, pouring herself coffee. "Rich people always have lawyers in random places." Emma laughed, but something about the envelope made her uneasy. The paper was heavy, expensive, official. She slid her finger under the flap and pulled out a single sheet of letterhead. "Dear Miss Hartley, it is our duty to inform you that your great-uncle, Theodore Hartley, passed away on October 3rd of this year. As his sole living relative, you have been named the primary beneficiary of his estate. The estate includes the property located at 447 Blackwood Lane, Ashford, Vermont, along with all structures, land, and possessions therein. We request your presence at our offices at your earliest convenience to finalize the transfer of ownership and discuss the conditions of inheritance. Please contact our office to schedule an appointment. Sincerely, Robert Morrison." Emma read the letter 3 times, her coffee growing cold in her hand. "Well?" Chloe prompted. "What is it?" "I inherited a house." Emma looked up, bewildered. "In Vermont, from someone called Theodore Hartley." "You're kidding." "I'm not. I've never even heard of Theodore Hartley." Emma pulled out her phone and typed the name into Google. Nothing relevant came up, just a few random social media profiles and a genealogy site. "This doesn't make sense. My father never mentioned any relatives in Vermont." "Maybe he didn't know," Chloe suggested. "Families lose touch, especially if there was drama." Emma thought about her father, David Hartley, who died when she was 16, 8 years ago now. He'd been a quiet man, an accountant who'd spent his evenings doing crossword puzzles and watching PBS documentaries. He'd never talked about his family, and Emma had always assumed it was because there wasn't much to tell. Her grandparents had died before she was born. No siblings, no cousins that she knew of. Just her and her father, and after he died, just her. And now apparently a great-uncle she'd never known existed. "What are you going to do?" Chloe asked. Emma looked at the letter again. A house. Property. In her current situation, working 2 part-time jobs, barely making rent on this cramped Boston apartment, it seemed like a miracle. Even if she sold it immediately, it could change her life. "I guess I'm going to Vermont," she said. Chapter 2. The journey. Emma borrowed Chloe's Honda Civic for the drive north. It was late October, and New England was putting on its annual display of autumn brilliance. Trees blazing red and gold against achingly blue skies. Under different circumstances, Emma might have enjoyed the drive. As it was, she couldn't shake a growing sense of dread that had nothing to do with the winding mountain roads. She'd done more research before leaving. Theodore Hartley had been a recluse, a retired professor of folklore and anthropology, who'd lived alone in Ashford for over 40 years. He'd never married, had no children, and according to a brief obituary in the local paper, had died peacefully at home at the age of 87. The obituary mentioned no funeral, no memorial service. No one had mourned him publicly, which seemed unbearably sad to Emma. To live that long and die so alone. Ashford itself was the kind of small Vermont town that appeared on postcards. A white church with a steeple, a main street lined with brick buildings, mountains rising in the distance like ancient sentinels. Population 2,400 according to the sign. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where nothing much changed from year to year. Emma found the law office easily enough. A converted Victorian house with a discreet brass plaque beside the door. Inside, the receptionist, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain, smiled warmly. "You must be Ms. Hartley. Mr. Morrison is expecting you." Robert Morrison turned out to be a tall, thin man in his 50s with the careful, measured movements of someone who spent most of his time dealing with other people's problems. He shook Emma's hand and gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said. "I realize this must be quite a shock." "I didn't know Theodore existed until 2 days ago," Emma admitted. "Can you tell me anything about him?" Morrison opened a file on his desk. "Not much, I'm afraid. Theodore was intensely private. I handled his legal affairs for 15 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times we met in person. Most of our communication was via letter." He paused. "He was eccentric, brilliant by all accounts, but eccentric. Why did he leave me everything? He didn't even know me." "Actually," Morrison said carefully, "he did know about you. He kept track of your father and later you. Nothing intrusive, just the occasional search to see how you were doing. When your father passed away, Theodore updated his will to make you his sole heir. He slid a document across the desk. He also left you this letter. He asked that you read it before deciding whether to accept the inheritance." Emma took the envelope. Her name was written on it in spidery handwriting. Emma Hartley. Inside was a single page of yellowed paper. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, I'm dead. I apologize for the bluntness, but at my age, euphemisms seem pointless. You don't know me, and I never had the courage to introduce myself while I was alive. Your father and I were estranged. He made certain choices I couldn't support, and I made the mistake of letting pride keep me from reconciliation. By the time I realized my error, too many years had passed. I hope you can forgive me for my absence from your life. I'm leaving you my home because you're the last of our line, and the house has been in the Hartley family for 7 generations. It comes with a responsibility I no longer have the strength to bear. There are things in that house, in the land itself, that require watching, tending, understanding. I won't explain further in this letter. If you choose to accept the inheritance, you'll understand soon enough. If you choose to refuse it, to sell the property and walk away, I won't blame you. In some ways, that would be the wiser choice. But if you do accept, if you decide to stay, please remember this. The house will test you. The land will test you, and you must never, under any circumstances, ignore what they tell you. The Hartleys have been guardians for a very long time. I pray you're strong enough to continue that tradition." Your great-uncle, Theodore. Emma read the letter twice, her unease deepening with each word. Guardians? Responsibility? What the hell was Theodore talking about? "Mr. Morrison," she said slowly, "what exactly am I inheriting?" Morrison's expression was difficult to read. "A house and approximately 15 acres of land in the northeast section of town. The property backs onto state forest. It's quite isolated, and there's something you're not telling me." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "The Hartley house has a reputation locally. It's very old, built in 1847. There have been stories about it for years. Nothing substantiated, you understand, just small-town folklore." "What kind of stories?" "The usual things. Lights in the windows when the house was supposed to be empty. Strange sounds in the woods. People who claim to see things that couldn't be there." He held up a hand. "I'm a rational man, Ms. Hartley. I don't put stock in ghost stories. But I'd be remiss not to mention that the property can be unsettling. Theodore himself rarely came into town, and when he did, he seemed uncomfortable. Almost afraid. Afraid of what? He never said. But once, about 5 years ago, I made the mistake of asking him why he didn't simply sell the property and move somewhere more convenient. He looked at me like I'd suggested he murder someone." Morrison's voice dropped. He said, "I can't leave. None of us can. Someone has to stay." Emma felt cold despite the warm office. "And he never explained what he meant?" "No. And I didn't ask again. Morrison straightened. Look, the property is valuable. If you don't want to live there, you could sell it. I can recommend a good realtor. You'd have enough money to start fresh somewhere else. It was sensible advice. The smart thing to do would be to sign the papers, sell the house sight unseen, and go back to Boston with enough money to finally breathe. To maybe go back to school like she'd always wanted. But something in Theodore's letter nagged at her. The last of our line. She'd always felt disconnected, rootless. No family, no history, no sense of where she came from. And now suddenly she had a chance to discover that. To understand what her father had never told her about their family. I want to see the house first, Emma heard herself say. Morrison nodded slowly. I expected you might. I've had it cleaned and aired out. The power and water are still connected. Theodore paid a year in advance before he died, almost as if he knew. He handed her a ring of old-fashioned keys. 47 Blackwood Lane. Take the main road north out of town for about 3 miles. You'll see a mailbox with the house number. The driveway is easy to miss, it's mostly grown over. Is there anyone I should talk to? Anyone who knew Theodore? Not really. He was a hermit, like I said. The only person who visited him regularly was Father Marcus from St. Anne's Church. If you want to learn more about your great-uncle, he might be able to help. Morrison stood, signaling the end of the meeting. The paperwork will take a few days to finalize. Take your time deciding. And Ms. Hartley? Be careful. I don't believe in supernatural nonsense, but that house, there's something not right about it. Never has been. Chapter 3, 447, Blackwood Lane. The driveway was indeed easy to miss, just a break in the trees marked by a rusted mailbox with faded numbers. Emma turned in carefully, the Honda's undercarriage scraping against undergrowth that had clearly been encroaching for years. The driveway wound through dense forest for nearly a quarter mile. Tall pines blocked out most of the afternoon sun, creating a tunnel of shadow. Emma's headlights picked out tree trunks pressing close on either side, and for a moment, she had the irrational feeling that the forest was closing in behind her, cutting off her escape. Then the trees opened up, and she saw the house. It stood in a clearing of overgrown grass. A 3-story Victorian painted dark gray with white trim, or what had once been white trim now peeling and weathered. A wraparound porch sagged slightly and several shutters hung crooked. The whole structure had an air of dignified decay, like an elderly person trying to maintain appearances despite advancing age. But it was the windows that caught Emma's attention. There were dozens of them, far more than seemed necessary, and they were arranged in no pattern she could discern. Some were tall and narrow, others wide and squat. A few seemed to be placed at odd heights, as if the house's original builders had simply cut holes wherever they felt like it. And every single window was dark, like empty eye sockets staring at her. Emma parked the car and got out slowly. The air smelled of pine needles and something else. Something earthy and old like the inside of a cave. The only sounds were wind rustling through trees and the distant call of a crow. The porch steps creaked under her weight. Emma pulled out the key ring Morrison had given her and tried 3 different keys before finding the one that fit the lock. The door swung inward with a horror movie groan. The interior was dark and Emma fumbled for a light switch. She found one and flicked it. Nothing happened. She tried another switch, then another. On the 4th try, lights buzzed to life overhead, old incandescent bulbs that cast a yellowish glow. She was standing in a grand entrance hall with a staircase curving up to the 2nd floor. The walls were covered in dark wood paneling, and the floor was wide plank hardwood that had aged to a deep honey color. Dust motes danced in the light filtering through a stained glass window on the landing. The glass depicted a forest scene, but something about the trees looked wrong, their branches twisted into shapes that almost resembled reaching hands. To her left was a sitting room, furnished with antiques. A Victorian sofa, wing-back chairs, tables covered with lace doilies. To her right, a dining room with a table that could seat 12. Everywhere she looked, there were books. Not just on shelves, but stacked on tables, piled in corners, towering in precarious columns against walls. Emma moved deeper into the house, her footsteps echoing. The kitchen was surprisingly modern. Theodore had updated it at some point with stainless steel appliances and granite counters, though everything was coated in a fine layer of dust. A door led to what looked like a pantry, but when Emma opened it, she found stone steps leading down into darkness. The basement. She'd come back to that later, preferably in daylight. She explored the first floor, finding a library that made her gasp. Floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with books on every subject imaginable. Anthropology, folklore, mythology, religion, history. Many were old, bound in leather with gilt lettering. Some appeared to be in languages Emma didn't recognize. In the corner of the library, an old roll-top desk sat facing the window. Papers were scattered across its surface, covered in Theodore's spidery handwriting. Emma picked up the top sheet and began to read October 1st. The sounds are getting louder. Last night I heard them clearly for the first time in months. The drumming from below. They're restless. Something is changing. I can feel it in the air, in the land, a shift. An opening. I'm too old for this now. Too tired. I've spent 40 years holding the line, and I don't know how much longer I can continue. The rituals are exhausting and I'm making mistakes. Last week I forgot the eastern boundary marker. Found it 3 days later, knocked over. Don't know if it was an animal or something else. Emma is my only hope now. David's daughter. She has the blood even if she doesn't know it yet. If she comes, if she accepts the inheritance, maybe she'll be strong enough. Maybe she'll understand, but I'm afraid for her. Afraid of what this place will do to her. It changed David, drove him away. It changed my father before me. The house takes its toll on all of us eventually. Still, someone must stay. Someone must keep watch. The alternative is unthinkable. Emma set the paper down with trembling hands. What the hell had Theodore been involved in? Rituals, boundary markers? It sounded like the ravings of someone who'd spent too much time alone, whose mind had started to slip. But there was a conviction in his words that unsettled her. He'd believed what he was writing. Whatever he'd been doing, he'd thought it was necessary, important. Emma continued her exploration, climbing the stairs to the second floor. She found 5 bedrooms, all furnished but clearly unused for years. The master bedroom appeared to be the one Theodore had occupied. The bed was made and personal items sat on the dresser. A photograph in a tarnished silver frame showed a young man and woman standing in front of this very house. The man was tall and serious-looking, the woman small with dark curly hair and a mischievous smile. Emma picked up the photo and saw writing on the back. George and Margaret Hartley, 1952, her great-grandparents maybe. She'd have to figure out the family tree. The third floor was an attic space that had been converted into a study. More books here, but these were different, older, stranger. Many had no titles on their spines. One shelf held what appeared to be handwritten journals, dozens of them, dating back over a century. Emma pulled out the oldest journal, its leather cover cracked and brittle. The first page read, "The Journal of Jeremiah Hartley, 1847, in which is recorded the truth of what lies beneath Blackwood House, and the covenant made by this family to guard against that which must not be named." A chill ran down Emma's spine. She wanted to read more, but the light was fading outside, and she realized she'd been in the house for over 2 hours. She should probably head back to town, find a hotel for the night. But as she turned to leave, something caught her eye through the attic window. Beyond the clearing, where the forest began, there appeared to be a stone structure, a wall maybe, or a foundation. It was hard to tell in the failing light. Emma descended the stairs, intending to leave. But when she reached the front door and put her hand on the knob, she hesitated. The house was silent around her. Not the comfortable silence of an empty building, but something heavier. Expectant. As if the house itself was waiting to see what she would do. Someone must stay, Theodore had written. Someone must keep watch. Emma made a decision that would change her life forever. She went back to her car, grabbed her overnight bag and returned to the house. She'd stay one night, just one, see what the fuss was about. And if she was being honest with herself, she had nowhere else to go. No apartment waiting for her in Boston. That had been Chloe's place, and Emma had been crashing there temporarily. No family, no ties. For the first time in her adult life, she had a home. Even if that home came with warnings and mysteries and a great uncle who'd written about rituals and things that drummed beneath the earth. Emma chose a bedroom on the second floor. Not Theodore's, but a smaller one with floral wallpaper and a brass bed. She found linens in a hallway closet that smelled of mothballs and lavender. As she made the bed, full darkness fell outside, and the house settled around her with creaks and groans that she told herself were just old wood expanding and contracting. She was brushing her teeth in the bathroom down the hall when she heard the first sound. It was faint at first, so faint she thought she'd imagined it, a low rhythmic thumping, like a distant drum or a slow heartbeat. Emma turned off the water and stood very still, listening. There it was again. Thump, 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 coming from below. From beneath the house, Emma's heart began to race. It was probably just pipes. Old houses had all kinds of plumbing issues. Nothing supernatural about it, but she remembered Theodore's note. Last night I heard them clearly for the first time in months, the drumming from below. The thumping stopped. Emma stood frozen in the bathroom, toothbrush in hand, straining to hear. Silence. Just the ordinary sounds of an old house at night. She was being ridiculous. She finished brushing her teeth, turned off the bathroom light, and headed back to the bedroom. That's when all the lights in the house went out at once. Emma froze in the pitch-black hallway. Her phone was in the bedroom. She'd left it charging on the nightstand. She tried to remember the layout, where the walls were, whether there were any obstacles in her path. It's just a power outage, she said aloud, her voice embarrassingly shaky. Old house, old wiring, nothing to freak out about. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. She'd turned on lights all over the house. Earlier, and not all of them had worked. The wiring was bad in places. They shouldn't all fail at once. Emma put her hand on the wall and started feeling her way down the hall toward the bedroom. 5 steps. 10. Her fingers touched the door frame and she slipped inside, moving by memory toward where she'd left her phone. Her hand closed on it, and she thumbs the flashlight on. The beam cut through darkness, illuminating the unfamiliar room. Everything looked different in the harsh LED light, shadows deeper, corners sharper. Emma went to the window and looked out. The forest was a solid wall of black, no lights visible anywhere. She was truly isolated here, miles from the nearest neighbor. As she stood there, phone flashlight painting circles on the glass, Emma saw something that made her blood run cold. There was a light in the woods, a faint greenish glow moving between the trees. It appeared and disappeared as it passed behind trunks heading toward the house. Emma's rational mind searched for explanations. A flashlight. Someone hiking. But that light wasn't moving like a person carrying a flashlight. It was floating, drifting, and the color was wrong. Too green, too bright, like foxfire or bioluminescence. The light reached the edge of the clearing and stopped. Emma's breath fogged the window pane as she leaned closer, trying to make out details. The light began to move again, but not toward the house. It was tracing the perimeter of the clearing, moving in a perfect circle. After a moment, Emma realized it was following the line where forest met lawn, the boundary of the property. Last week I forgot the eastern boundary marker, Theodore had written. Found it 3 days later, knocked over. Whatever that light was, it was testing the boundaries, looking for a way in. Emma backed away from the window, her heart hammering. This was insane. She should leave. Get in her car right now and drive back to civilization and never come back to this place, but she couldn't. Not just because it was the middle of the night and she had no idea how to navigate that overgrown driveway in darkness, but because some part of her, The part that was Theodore's blood, Jeremiah's blood. Generations of Hartleys who'd lived in this house knew that leaving would be wrong. Whatever was out there, it was the reason her family had stayed here for 7 generations. It was the reason Theodore had lived alone for 40 years, performing rituals and checking boundary markers and keeping watch. And now it was her responsibility. The thought terrified her. But it also sparked something else, curiosity, a need to understand. Emma kept her phone flashlight pointed at the window, watching the green light continue its circuit around the clearing. It completed one full circle, then another, then a third. On the 4th pass it stopped again, this time at what Emma judged was the eastern edge of the property. The light pulsed, growing brighter, then dimmer, then brighter again. Almost like it was breathing, then it vanished. Emma waited, counting her heartbeats. 1 minute, 2, 5. The light didn't return. Slowly, the lights in the house flickered back to life. Emma jumped at the sudden brightness, then laughed nervously. Just electrical problems. Totally normal for a house this old, except it wasn't normal. And she knew it. Emma spent the rest of the night sitting up in bed, back against the headboard, phone clutched in one hand. She didn't sleep. Every creak, every whisper of wind, every settling timber made her flinch. But nothing else happened. The house remained quiet, and when gray dawn light finally began to seep through the windows, Emma felt a wave of relief so intense she nearly cried. She'd survived her first night at Blackwood House, but as she looked at the forest in the growing light, at the trees that pressed close on all sides, Emma had the sinking feeling that last night had just been the beginning. Chapter 4. Father Marcus Emma drove into town as soon as it was fully light. Desperate for coffee and human contact and the reassurance that the normal world still existed, she found a diner on Main Street called the Bluebird and slid into a booth by the window, ordering coffee and pancakes from a waitress who looked at her with undisguised curiosity. "You're not from around here," the waitress said. It wasn't a question. "Just visiting," Emma replied, too tired to explain. "Uh-huh." The waitress, her name tag read Diane, poured coffee with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing this for decades. "You staying at the inn?" "No, I inherited a house here. From a relative." Diane's eyes widened. "You're not Theodore Hartley's niece?" "Great niece, actually." "Well, I'll be damned." Diane called over her shoulder. "Hey, Frank. We got Theodore's girl here." A man emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on an apron. He was barrel-chested and gray-haired, with the kind of face that was permanently weathered by outdoor work. "You serious?" "Sure am," Diane said. "This is Emma. What was your last name, hun?" "Hartley." "Emma Hartley," Diane repeated like she was introducing royalty. She inherited the house. Frank's expression shifted from curiosity to something Emma couldn't quite read. "Concern? Pity? You planning on staying?" he asked. "I haven't decided yet." Frank and Diane exchanged a look that made Emma uncomfortable. "You should talk to Father Marcus," Frank said finally. "He knew your uncle better than anyone." That's what the lawyer said. "Is the church far?" "Just up the street. St. Anne's, the big stone building with the cemetery out back." Frank hesitated. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but your uncle was a good man. Strange but good. And that house of his, it's—" He trailed off, searching for words. "It's what?" Emma prompted. "It's not a place I'd want to live," Frank said bluntly. "My grandfather used to tell stories about it. Said strange things happened there. People seeing lights in the woods, hearing sounds. Old Theodore, he never denied it. Just said it was part of the family business." What did he mean by that? Frank shrugged. "No idea. But he was serious about it. Dead serious, if you'll pardon the expression." Emma finished her coffee and paid, leaving a generous tip. As she stood to go, Diane touched her arm. "You be careful out there, honey. And if you need anything, I mean anything, you come find us, okay? Don't try to handle everything alone." The kindness in her voice nearly broke Emma's composure. She nodded mutely and hurried out to her car. St. Anne's was indeed impossible to miss, a Gothic revival structure in dark stone with a bell tower that dominated the skyline. The cemetery spread behind it, headstones marching up a hillside in neat rows. Emma found the rectory beside the church and knocked on the door. A young woman in her 20s answered. Church secretary, probably. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Father Marcus." "Is he available?" "He's in the church." "Go on in. He won't mind the interruption." Emma crossed to the church and pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, the space was dim and cool, light filtering through stained glass windows that cast colored patterns on the pews. A man in clerical collar stood near the altar arranging flowers in a vase. "Father Marcus?" He turned and Emma got her first good look at him. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe mid-40s, with dark hair going gray at the temples and sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Yes?" Then recognition sparked in his expression. "You're Emma Hartley. How did you— Theodore showed me a photograph once. You look like your father." He set down the flowers and came toward her, hand extended. "I'm sorry for your loss. Theodore was a remarkable man." "I never met him," Emma admitted. "I didn't even know he existed until a few days ago." Father Marcus's expression softened. "Yes, he mentioned that. It caused him great pain, the estrangement from your father and by extension you. He wanted to reach out many times but never quite found the courage. Can you tell me about him? Everyone keeps saying he was strange." "Let's sit." Father Marcus led her to a pew near the front. Theodore was many things. Brilliant, certainly. He taught anthropology at 3 different universities before retiring to Ashford. But he was also troubled, burdened. He carried something with him, a knowledge, a responsibility that weighed on him constantly. "The house," Emma said. "Everyone acts like there's something wrong with it." "There is something wrong with it," Father Marcus said bluntly. "Or rather, something wrong with the land it sits on." Theodore understood this better than anyone. He spent his life studying it, trying to understand what his ancestors had bound themselves to. Emma felt cold despite the warm church. "What are you talking about?" Father Marcus was quiet for a long moment, as if weighing how much to tell her. Finally he spoke. "You know I'm a priest. Man of God, believer in the divine and the sacred. But I'm also a rational person. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or things that go bump in the night." He paused. "Or I didn't until I spent time with Theodore. Until I saw what he dealt with every day." "Saw what?" "Have you stayed at the house yet?" Emma nodded. "Last night, and? Did you experience anything unusual?" Emma thought about the lights going out, about the green glow in the forest. "Maybe, I'm not sure. It could have been my imagination." "It wasn't." Father Marcus's voice was certain. "The house is a threshold. A thin place. One of the spots where the barrier between our world and something else is weakened. Maybe torn. Your family has lived there for 7 generations because someone needs to. Someone needs to maintain the barrier, to keep what's on the other side from pushing through." "That's insane." "Is it? Then explain the lights. Explain why animals won't go near certain parts of the property. Explain why people who've tried to develop that land have all failed. Machinery breaking down, workers refusing to return, accidents that defy statistical probability." Emma wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because she'd seen the light. She'd felt the wrongness in the house, the sense of something waiting. "Theodore came to me 15 years ago," Father Marcus continued. "He was exhausted, aging, starting to worry about what would happen when he died. He asked if I believed in evil, real evil, not just human cruelty, but something older, something that existed before humanity and will exist after. I told him, yes, I believe in evil. That's part of my faith, acknowledging the existence of darkness so we can work toward light." "What did he say?" "He said, 'Good, because I need your help fighting it.'" Father Marcus's eyes were distant, remembering. "He took me to the house. Showed me things. Evidence going back generations, journals, photographs, recordings. Proof that something existed on that land that shouldn't. And he showed me the rituals his family had performed to keep it contained. What kind of rituals? Nothing dark. Nothing evil, just maintenance. Walking the boundary markers at certain times. Performing small ceremonies on specific dates. Speaking words that had been passed down generation after generation. Theodore believed that his ancestors, your ancestors, had made some kind of bargain with whatever existed there. An agreement: we won't disturb you, you won't disturb the world. But the agreement needs constant reinforcement. Without it what? Father Marcus met her eyes. Theodore believed that without someone maintaining the boundary, whatever is trapped there would break free, and he was terrified of what would happen if it did. Emma sat in silence, processing this. It was too much. Too strange. She wanted to dismiss it as the delusions of a lonely old man and the priest who'd humored him. But she couldn't. Because deep down, some instinct told her it was true. Why didn't he tell my father? She asked. Why did they become estranged? Because your father refused to accept it. David was like you, rational, skeptical. Theodore tried to explain when David was young, tried to teach him the family duty. But David rejected it, called it superstition and madness. When he turned 18, he left and never came back. Never even visited. Theodore said it broke his heart, but he understood. The burden is immense. Not everyone can bear it, and now he wants me to. Not wants, needs. You're the last, Hartley. If you refuse, if you sell the property and walk away, there will be no one to maintain the boundary. And Theodore believed I believe that would be catastrophic. This is insane, Emma whispered. You're telling me my family has been guarding some kind of supernatural evil for 150 years. 178 years, actually. Since 1847, when Jeremiah Hartley built that house. Father Marcus stood. I know it's a lot to take in. Theodore didn't expect you to decide immediately. That's why he left you the journals, generations of family records. Read them, learn the history, then decide. What if I decide to leave? Father Marcus's expression was grave. Then go.